Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now guys, he said, she said, the truth is usually in there somewhere. So this is now Malam Buhari and his team coming out to have their say about what actually transpired in Kano State with the dethronement of Lamido Sanusi. So with that guys, I bring you this. Presidency reveals real reasons Sanusi was dethroned. So that's the headline we're contending with in this video. Presidency reveals real reasons why Sanusi was dethroned. So let's now see what the Alpha One of the Malamis has to say for himself. The presidency had revealed real reasons the deposed Emir of Kano, Malam Sanusi Lamido Sanusi. So they've now dropped the Emir title and now it's back to Malam. So Malam Sanusi Lamido Sanusi was ousted, stating the various moves made by President Muhammadu Buhari to save him. A top presidency source disclosed in Abuja on Saturday that Buhari's intervention led to the setting up of different reconciliation committees whose efforts came to nothing. The presidency blamed the intransigence of both parties of the conflict for the way it turned out. The revelation came after the presidency had previously denied that Buhari had anything to do with the dethronement of Sanusi. According to the presidency source, contrary to allegations of collusion to remove Sanusi from office, the presidency had intervened at several stages of the conflict in the last 2 years to avoid escalation, but the efforts collapsed because of the intransigence of the two sides to shift ground. The source informed State House correspondents that Ganduje had made up his mind to remove Sanusi as far back as 2017, saying the governor informed President Buhari of this decision. He, however, asked for advice and guidance. Straight away, President Buhari said it was inappropriate and requested that the plan be shelved. This meeting was followed with a written letter to the governor on November 17, 2017, in which the president's advice was clearly stated. The president directed his chief of staff, Abba Kyari, to follow up for a peaceful resolution of the crisis between the two. This led to the setting up of a committee made up of 5 state governors, led by that of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. They did their best. Calm returned, but occasional flares continued and were aggravated by the tense situations under which the governor emerged for a second term in 2019. In the course of that period, Governor Fayemi, his Jigawa state counterpart, Abubakar Badaru, and to some extent the Inspector General of Police made several expeditions to Kano to prevail on the governor not to remove the emir in those tense moments in the interest of peace and security. The main grounds of the administration was that the emir had failed to stay above the fray of partisan politics, especially as it relates to the governor's re-election. In reaction to the various suggestions by senior citizens, including Generals Ibrahim Babangida Wushishi and Abdusalami Abubakar, amongst others, the Chief of Staff sought for permission and gave the green light for the commencement of work by the Abdusalami Abubakar Committee. The committee members sat down with the president at the villa to discuss their vision. At this meeting, the president outlined the efforts he had put into the resolution of the conflict in Kano and said he has had enough. He gave assurances of support and put at their disposal the use of the presidential aircraft and wished them the best of luck. But he did make it clear that if the situation warranted, we would not hesitate to clamp an emergency rule on the state. Governor Ganduje gave conditions for peace, including the withdrawal of court cases by Emir Sanusi against the state government. Sanusi allegedly accepted to withdraw some of the cases, but stood his ground on others, including his refusal to withdraw a case instituted by Bashir Tofa and his group, who the state government alleged to be Sanusi's proxies in the case. The governor insisted that the newly created Emirates ought to be kept, but acceded to the emir that 4 of the 5 kingmakers whose districts were exercised from Kano be reinstated. The emir agreed not to appeal the decision to uphold the emirate by the court. It was clear all this while that the inability to meet some of the conditions for peace by both parties complicated the situation. For example, the former emir wanted the Kano State Anti-Corruption Commission to stop its case against him completely. He stood firmly that the case he instituted against the Code of Conduct Bureau (CCB) would not be withdrawn because it needed to pursue it to clear his name, a demand that the governor rejected. Despite these frustrations, according to the source, the president didn't give up on efforts for peace. The presidency official said when the chief of staff led a delegation to condole the former emir over the death of Ambassador Sanusi, the late Dan Iyan Kano, the former emir's uncle, Kyari met separately with Ganduje and Sanusi in a renewed effort to reconcile the two. According to the source, the Abubakar-led committee report didn't give any glimmer of hope of ending the crisis. He added that a mediator's success depends largely on the cooperation of the parties involved. The source noted that having gone to this extent for peace, it was uncharitable and baseless to accuse President Buhari of ordering Ganduje to depose Sanusi. The president holds Sanusi in the highest esteem and has nothing personal against him, and therefore he couldn't have told Ganduje to depose him. The allegations that Abuja, referring indirectly to President Buhari, is complicit in the emir's alleged forceful removal from the palace and exile to Nasarawa are equally nonsensical, he said. So let me just pause there for a moment. It is not at all nonsensical and it does make infinite sense. So Ganduje could not have deposed Sanusi without discussing it with Buhari. So we now have proof from the words of the presidency that he did in fact discuss it with Buhari. Now, Ganduje could not have proceeded with that act of removing Sanusi from office, from his throne, from his ancestral seat, without the go-ahead from Buhari. It's an absolute impossibility. And also to say that the presidency is not complicit in this is an absolute and a factual lie, because if you look at just the trajectory of what happened in this particular case, this guy was deposed, a national figure. So yes, is a Kano emir, but he is really a national figure, and you can't move against a national figure without having national consent, and national consent of course comes from Aso Rock. We all know that. So that's one. And then also the DSS were involved in this because this is a cross-state activity. They removed him from Kano State, from his stool in Kano State, and that you can say is fair enough, that is within their jurisdiction. But then they exiled him to Nasarawa. So Nasarawa State is not part of Kano State. Nasarawa State is a standalone state by itself with its own governmental structure. So you cannot act within that state without the consent of the state. So the only way that you can act within that state without the consent of the state is if you are acting at a federal level, and if Ganduje has access to federal structures to remove Sanusi from office, then that by implication means that he has the consent of the federation, i.e. Buhari. So now, what am I saying? The DSS were involved in the removal of this guy because they moved him and they secured him there, because the DSS were mentioned all the way through. Now, the DSS is not under the purview of Ganduje. The DSS is under the purview of Buhari, and the DSS especially, they may well be under the purview of Ganduje within Kano State, because of course they have operatives within each state, and those operatives work in collaboration with the state government, and then of course with the national oversight. So they can work within that state and exile him within that state, but the DSS that is in Kano State cannot move somebody to Nasarawa State without approval from the top. And the approval from the top of moving somebody like Sanusi is not just sitting, it doesn't rest within the purview of the head of the DSS, Yusuf Bichi. No, it is something that has to be assented to by the presidency. So the federal structures that were involved in the mechanisms and the machinations of this whole process were ways to the direction that this has Buhari's hands in it, because as I said, this of course is a cross-state activity. You moved him from Kano State to Nasarawa State, you held him in exile, in captivity, in detention effectively, and that of course would have needed federal cooperation. So exactly and entirely Buhari's hands are in this, but we carry on. And it carries on. The president holds Sanusi in the highest esteem and has nothing personal against him, and therefore he couldn't have told Ganduje to depose him. The allegations that Abuja, referring indirectly to the president, is complicit in the emir's alleged forceful removal from the palace and exile to Nasarawa are equally nonsensical. So I think we've already gone through that. According to the presidency, chieftaincy laws in northern Nigeria going back to 1919 makes the deposition and confinement of emirs and chief. Saki Aliu of Kano was removed by the colonial administration using this law, and he was walked to Lokoja on foot to start a new life in exile. State governments have used that law to full effect, dealing with Sultan Dasuki in Sokoto, who was removed and kept in Zinc, Taraba State. Emir Jokolo of Gwandu, Kebbi State, had been kept away from the state for over 2 decades. Kano State didn't need President Buhari's authorization for anyone to remove and exile emirs and chiefs. Recall that the presidency, in a statement last week, maintained that it has no involvement whatsoever in the dethronement of Sanusi from the position of Emir of Kano. All such insinuations are untrue, malicious, and politically motivated. So me does think he protests too much is really my summary of that. We all know what our thinking is on this matter, and I want to hear your thinking, especially in the comment section. I am of the view that Malam Buhari was not just complicit in this, he actually directed it. Because if you look at especially the argument that I have already presented, which I'm not going to rehash, you need a federal structure to be able to actualize it in the manner that it has been actualized. Because you cannot, as the governor of Kano State, use your security apparatus to operate within another sovereign standalone state like Taraba State, or Nasarawa State rather. Nasarawa State he was sent to. So you cannot use your own structure to infringe on somebody else's of equal status structure without federal consent. So all of it in its entirety has Buhari's fingerprints all over it, and Buhari of course is a vindictive man, and Sanusi of course is a man that is critical of Buhari. Is often hinting to Nigerians that even if you are claiming that this guy has integrity, which it doesn't, integrity alone is not enough, it's not sufficient to run a complex and a diverse country of 200 million people. And this is what we're seeing manifesting now in the state of the nation as we see it now, as the country continues to regress into the abyss. So this is what Sanusi has been saying all this while. So yes, Buhari does have a personal gripe against this guy, and unfortunately for Sanusi, the governor of his own most immediate environment, Ganduje, also has a personal gripe against him as well, on account of the fact that Sanusi was saying that he was a bit stupid to allow himself to be caught pocketing dollars in the bribery and corruption sting. So this is now the situation that Sanusi found himself in. Two powerful enemies who have the powers to move against what is most immediate and most profound to him, which is of course the seat, the stool that he sits on, and they've of course now moved him from that stool. So I am entirely of the view that this has all of the hands of Buhari on it, and this would never have happened if Buhari had not wished it. Conversations in the comment section may just think he protests too much, the Malabi, but what says you? Come share thoughts about all this with me in the comment section, but before you do that, click on the red subscribe button so it turns gray, bell button notifies you every time I drop a new video, then come tell me yes or no if you think Buhari is complicit or not in the removal of Sanusi from his ancestral seat. A simple question. Conversations in the comment section. So I'll leave you here. Carry on this conversation with you in the comment section, but here I say peace.